Let me just give you a clue here in a moment. Okay, Mary.
Yeah. Hey, hi everyone. Today is our second program in our series on local journalism, and our guest is Jeremy Janine. He's the president of Urban Milwaukee, and he's going to discuss the future of independent journalism in Milwaukee. Next week, we'll hear from Charles Eline of Teens Growing Greens. Jeremy, who founded Urban Milwaukee in 2008 with business partner Dave Reed, covers real estate, transportation, and city government, and he manages the publication's fast-growing membership program, internships, and the sales team. He took Urban Milwaukee from a part-time passion project to a full-fledged organization with more than 350,000 monthly readers and 900,000 page views, and a staff of 5 full-time employees with more than a dozen regular freelancers. Jeremy's reporting has him traveling to all corners of the city, tracking down tips, attending public meetings, and digging up public records. A graduate of MSOE with a bachelor's degree in management information systems, Jeremy is an advocate for an integrated regional transit system. He serves on the Milwaukee County Transit Services Advisory Committee and is a board member of Metro Go, an organization that promotes regional transit in Milwaukee. After Jeremy's presentation, we'll just unmute ourselves for the Q&A. Welcome, Jeremy, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. And as a warning, if you hear someone crying in the background, that's hopefully my daughter and not my wife. Our daughter, Rotary, turned 7 weeks old today. We're both very happy, all three of us, not just both of us, all three of us now. But a very humbling experience, but very happy with it. So we hit on what Urban Milwaukee is at the highest level, but we're a publication focused on the city of Milwaukee and its residents. Last year, and this is true across a lot of the news universe, but last year we grew our audience by 107% to 4.3 million unique visitors. Our page views grew to 13 million. That's almost a 68% jump, not drop. But those aren't the numbers I want you to focus on. I'm going to talk more about the numbers I do want you to focus on and how you think about being a good consumer of the news and how you think about what the future of news media might look like. As Mary said, we have a 5-person full-time team. We're also heavily reliant on freelancers. As we grow, we continue to try and bring more people in full-time. We think that just is a better outcome, but we know there's a lot of people that like to write for us, and they produce really high-quality journalism as freelancers. I don't think you need to be a full-time journalist to write a really good column, regular column on something. We're supported by advertising and membership revenue. We're going to talk a lot about that. That'll be really the focus of my presentation today is what is membership revenue? What does that look like? And what does advertising revenue mean? We think we do a lot of things particularly well. Our coverage of City Hall and local politics between myself, Bruce Murphy, and now Graham Kilmer covering Milwaukee County. We like to think we're as in-depth as it comes on those local issues. We give detailed local coverage of real estate development and not just new downtown high-rises. We're covering new bars and restaurants, but not just the ones in trendy neighborhoods that have PR staffs. We continue to invest in arts coverage, although the last year has really shown that that's difficult, not for us, but for the arts organizations as they pivot to doing virtual models, and we're ready to be here for them to promote everything they do as they're coming back to in-person events. One of the things we did that now doesn't seem as novel, but at the time we did it, was we decided to publish press releases directly. So when we publish things that say by Alderman Robert Bauman or by the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, our goal there was to allow the organization to speak for itself, but to label it as such, and to avoid this thing we were seeing occurring increasingly in news media, where people were simply rewriting, and I use rewriting in quotes, press releases and publishing them as if their journalists had written them themselves. We wanted to be totally transparent about that. We think there's great community value there as well in allowing more organizations to get the word out when we want to have staff time to write about everything. But the big thing I want to talk about today is who is the customer in a news publication and who is the product. It's something you probably haven't thought about if you're a rational, normal person, but it's a big issue, and you're going to see it increasingly drive decisions on how the news is when you read it. If there are ads, and this is true on Facebook as well as on the news, if there are ads and you're not paying for it, the reader is the product, which means you are what is being sold. And that kind of creates this perverse world where there's all these negative externalities. There's a rush to be first instead of accurate or detailed. There's a push for things like listicles that kind of make your lizard brain want to click on them. 13 new restaurants you must try. Actually, that's probably a more decent one. 13 reasons, something like anything that you're seeing numbers and headlines that are just lists. That often is not a great way to deliver news. It's more designed to get your brain to click in a social media world. And the biggest thing is your experience in reading is going to be really subpar because the publication's incentive is not to deliver you the highest quality product in terms of the reading experience. Think of a book, you would never expect to see an ad in a book where you pay for a book. But when you go on a news website, it's like an ad every other paragraph now, especially on a mobile device. And that's because the rate that advertisers are paying, because there's just an ever-growing amount, not of advertisers, but of available impressions, for ads continues to drop. So to get the same amount of revenue, you need to sell even more ad spaces. And so what's the logical thing to do? Jam more ads into place. Well, that has all these negative consequences as a reader. So what's the idea? Well, we can just charge everyone an automatic across the board paywall. That's an idea. Think special newsletters for maybe hobbies or something, super niche publications. It puts the reader as the customer and aligns all the incentives perfectly. You're paying for it. You're going to get high quality stuff. If you don't like it, you quit paying for it. The world moves on. But this doesn't often work at scale for a host of reasons. In Milwaukee, there'd obviously be equity concerns. Can you charge everyone the same price for something? Is that fair? Also, how do you attract a new audience as a new publication? That's a huge issue for us. We're not the established newspaper in town. We're not someone with a multi-decade history like, say, the Shepherd Express. But how do we get readers then? Well, we've stumbled on this model of membership, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to point out there actually is some models where paywalling works. And if you're familiar with the Athletic National News Sports website, I think it's a gold standard kind of aligning those incentives of making the reader the actual customer. There's an excellent website, it's completely paywalled, ad-free, but the publication has millions and millions of dollars in venture capital backing. How long will that last? Good question. But that model exists out there. It's just not one we've chosen to pursue, and I don't think a lot of local publications could pursue it, especially if they want to be independent. And then there's publications that don't do ads only. They don't entirely free ads only. There's publications that don't do paywall only, and they muddle them together. They charge you to read it and still sell you ads. They're trying to have it both ways. I don't think this is really the future. I think that's going to continue to generate this animosity towards feelings towards publications where I'm paying more and more over time so my subscription price goes up, but there's still more and more ads. So at Urban Milwaukee, we think we've stumbled onto what is a good middle ground. We didn't 10 years ago go looking for this, but after kind of surveying what other groups were doing and then kind of discussing it internally, hey, this idea came to us. We want to convert a small portion of our audience into paying members and give them an enhanced reading experience with that. And by doing that, they become the customer instead of the product. But we don't want to ever charge everyone for everything. We don't want to create a paywall for fears of equity issues, for fears of our growth. We don't think we're going to become bigger than the local newspaper, publications like that anytime soon. So we have to keep those things in mind. We have free access to our core thing, our articles, but we want to encourage people to pay. And the goal is really to create a sustainable, independent publication that is both highly respected in the community and that can have a focus on serving its paying readers instead of shareholders or a national network focused on dividends. We think we can do that long term. We think we can create good paying jobs doing that. And we think we can improve the level of public discourse. And we're seeing that work. Last year had this rare chance. We thought it was going to be the DNC, where if we get more members, we can hire another full-time reporter. That will help us get more traffic. That'll help us get more members. It'll help us get another full-time reporter. So DNC seemed like this logical thing. We got to have a local angle to it. We'll figure it all out. It'll be brilliant. Well, DNC, of course, didn't happen, but there was a racial equity protest movement that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And we think we did a good job covering it, and based on the number of new members we got, we think people did as well. Instead of trying to focus it always cover it from a macro perspective, we're trying to do what we can do as a small publication. We're trying to be boots on the ground. We're trying to talk to people marching, and we're trying to show you what it looked like. And often that involved marching late into the night. I would personally be out there until 2 or 3 in the morning. Sometimes I would come home, write an article, wake up at 8 a.m. and look to restart the whole process. June was a crazy month. But what that really saw, on top of what we thought was a positive conversation happening, at least locally, in terms of we need to address these issues, was we were able to fast forward the process to hire another full-time journalist. It also showed us that our model works. We like to think of it as a flywheel. The positive effects build on one another. We get revenue, we invest that in journalists, we produce more high quality articles, we get more members, repeat, the things start spinning and spinning and spinning. And so why would a member pay? Why do they start to help us support this flywheel experience? We get an ad-free browsing experience for them. One thing, and we'll talk about this, is the challenge we have to address is an enhanced website. So we want your experience as a paying member to not just be ad-free, but to have benefits. When you look at our photo galleries, you don't have to click through multiple pages. There's, again, one of those incentives that we're trying to get you to see more ads. You know, if you're a paying member, you're just going to look at all the photos at once, click and open whichever one you want, no multiple paging. And we really have to build on that. We're going to have rollouts really soon, some new email options that'll be specially for members. We really look forward to getting back to members events. We had a lot of members only events. These were things like brewery tours, but they're also tours of things like new buildings. We have a once a year party, a whole series of things. We're trying to do more and more and more of that. And then one thing we're learning is there's just a lot of goodwill that people enjoy paying for the news and feeling like they're part of something that's in their community. The safest way, the easiest way to get a new member is to write about someone. We're finding the more we cover, the more people want to sign up that say, hey, I actually really like that. And then they renew in the future years and things are good. And members pay for us between $9 a month or $99 a year. We know certain people are like, wow, that's a lot. But at the same time, it allows us to do one key thing, which is to never feel the pressure to raise rates for a long, long time. We never want to get in the position where we feel like we're having to nickel and dime someone from $5 to $5.50 to $7 to $8. I'll call it the Netflix problem. But there are challenges. We have to have a nonstop investment in our website. There's constantly things, our list of ideas we have that we want to implement is forever growing. The list of things we can implement is not happening fast enough. We have to figure out what the right size for the publication can be. Our staff is small and hardworking, but what is our right size? Are we ever going to be an organization with 10 full-time employees? I don't have a clear answer for that. We will unquestionably be larger than we are now, but I don't know what the limit is. The Milwaukee is only so big to support something. We don't want to get to the point where we're, just having all these staff members and then have to cut them in the future. We want long-term quality employees that are well known. And sorry, I'm covering my notes with my camera at the moment. How do we convince people to keep paying? So historically, that's easy. More and more events, improve the website. 2020 showed that that's a bit difficult. You can't have events. What do? We found that a lot of people were quite patient with that, but there's challenges ahead. If we have another year of no events, that might be a bit more difficult. One thing, a perverse thing that happened out of the presidency of Donald Trump is the bashing of fake news, fake news, fake news, caused a lot of people to evaluate what they think about the news actually and who's providing it. And that was actually, for a lot of news publications, a great opportunity to add paying members, be it the Washington Post or Urban Milwaukee. The question now is what happens in 2022 if there's not a drumbeat online and in the media covering Donald Trump of, hey, fake news, fake news, fake news. We think there's plenty of opportunity in the road ahead for us, though. I don't see an end to the era of consolidation and mergers for media outlets. There's, I would say, an oversaturation of media outlets in Milwaukee, but I don't see any of our competitors or us likely to go away anytime soon. But if we go to like peer cities like Cleveland, there's far fewer outlets, or they're at least less notable. And then one thing I do want to announce, if you know any aspiring journalists, we're hiring for 2 part-time positions right now. They'll help support our publishing team. We think these positions are kind of farm team, for lack of a better term. They're people that we want to, one, get a good on-the-job evaluation, ideally suited for current college students or recent grads. And then the hope is that their work will even fund creating a full-time position for them in the next year. So with that, I'm open to any questions. Looks like we're just about the 15-minute mark.
Jeremy, I'll start. I'm curious if you, how you define your geographic footprint. Do you go in throughout Milwaukee County or?
Sure. So for our hard news, we like to, and by that I mean our coverage of real estate issues, political issues, we try to focus as much as possible on the city of Milwaukee. For arts and entertainment issue coverage, that gets a bit broader. People are less concerned about what's in their neighborhood versus what they're interested in. So we end up covering things like the Sharon Wilson Center in Brookfield. But by and large, we're not covering the new Sonic drive-up restaurant opening in Brookfield. We're much more interested in a new barbecue restaurant on 17th and Teutonia.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a question from Jeff Martinka that I think delves right into that. Can you compare and contrast the local news coverage of urban Milwaukee versus your peers? And I think that's one of the things. We're not seeing anyone else write about the city proper as much as we are. It's, I don't want to say obvious, but it's known that like Journal Sentinel and other large publications have pulled people back from City Hall, from Milwaukee County coverage. There's still people there. It's not that they're not there at all. But like the Journal Sentinel City Hall beat is now the City Hall and County beat. And we have myself and someone else assigned to that. So that we're trying to do more coverage there, but also looking at, you know, what's happening on 35th and Burnham, what's happening on 27th and Locust. We're trying to cover things like that more. I'm not going to tell you we do a great job at it, but it's a focus at getting better at it. We also have some great partners that are helping. I think the neighborhood news service, Ron Smith, spoke to you last week, that we partner with them. They have targeted coverage in certain neighborhoods that really helps augment what we do.
Jeremy, what are your demographics like? Who is the main reader of Urban Milwaukee?
Sure. I like to say that there's stakeholders in Milwaukee, and because there's not great, there's no perfect way to tell. We know one thing for sure, the people that are paying members are slightly older and they're higher educated and higher earning than our average Joe Blow public reader that's reading for free. That probably doesn't surprise anyone. Our readers for a long time they were substantially more male than female. The demographic breakdown was like 60-40. Now that's moving back to 50-50. But we know compared to, and there's a service Quantcast that does this for us, it had other news websites in the Milwaukee area, and I don't actually know exactly who they are. I know who a couple of them are, but it's not every news site in the Milwaukee area. But our readers were substantially higher educated. They were much more likely to have a master's degree and much more likely to be higher earning. But the way Quantcast calculates that is based on your browsing behavior. So I'm always skeptical of, well, the person with the bachelor's degree that just goes and reads a lot of academic stuff, are they classified as someone with a master's degree because of how they analyze that data? But we know they're unfortunately whiter than Milwaukee is. They're higher earning than Milwaukee is. And that's part of why we continue to drive our coverage to the city as a whole.
I'm curious, you were talking about your website, and have you given thought to creating an app? And a lot of the media outlets have created apps for the smartphones.
Yes, we thought about it. It hasn't been risen to the top of the list of things. It's something that's always kind of percolating as this is item 8 on the list we want to get to, and then something new comes and takes its place. One of the challenges with an app is you're not only creating it, but you're maintaining it for forever. I think we have more stability with mobile phones now. There's less, I mean, your pressure to replace your iPhone is a bit less than it was 5 years ago. The cameras and stuff are less of an upgrade at the moment. That could all change. So that creates more of an opportunity. We're looking at, and it's something, it's not like imminent by any means, but for members to have some type of, if you've ridden the bus, they have a special app to ride the bus that shows your virtual ticket. They did a really cost-effective, low-cost way to show, hey, I'm an active member. Because our challenge with monthly members is we can't print membership cards that you can cancel at any time. You can just claim an active member forever, or we got to mail you a new card every month. But can we use an app for things like that, which will allow us to expand the offerings of our membership program, where you can just show, hey, I'm an active member on my phone, and you can get a discount at whatever business. Or really long-term thoughts are, hey, I can open up my phone and what is this building across the street? Because we are aggressively building out the database of that information.
Jeremy, I'm really glad to hear about the success you're having, and particularly with the model of trying to break the relationship between advertising eyeballs and the content and so forth, and really just go for as much as possible the subscriber model, because you'll end up in a much better place, particularly with the low dollars you can earn from advertising online. Are you finding a couple of questions? One is, how are you getting new readers? How are you getting to them, particularly in COVID times where you can't, as you say, have events and find other places to get them? And then once you get them, are you finding, what kind of feedback are you getting on what they want to read about? And a second question to that, which is always the trap you fall in with online, is that, well, they may always want to read about the 10 best restaurants, in Milwaukee, but you need to serve them their vegetables too, in terms of what's going on in City Hall and so forth. So
yeah, so I'm going to start answering your questions, and then you're probably going to have to remind me what they were.
I'll have forgotten what I asked. It's okay.
So we think of what we do as a funnel, and our background, our office actually was in the Colby Abbott building. It will be again in the Colby Abbott building, hopefully next month. But we suffered this massive fire, the building did, in June, in the middle of covering all the protest movement. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but if you're going to have an office fire, a pandemic when everyone's working from home is good. I say all that to collect my thoughts that we have this beautiful graphic on the whiteboard of what our funnel was. And you think of it, the biggest, widest end is you can read the website for free. There's 98% of our audience is never going to pay because they're maybe not even regular readers. And that's okay. And that's this huge group. And then we have to always be improving the conversion as you move through the funnel. If off the top of my head, for some reason, I believe there were 4 steps to the funnel. Now, I don't have my notes in front of me on it, but free readers just that are finding it on social media, that's a huge way we get new audience. Then we have to set up our website for those readers to try and make them into email subscribers. So instead of relying on Facebook to share what we have with them, that they're getting it via email every day on a list we control. We can tell what they're clicking on, what they may be interested in, mostly if they just go dormant or leave us, or they can leave us a note on why they left. Then we can convert them to members, step 3, get them to pay at least once. We know that going from an email subscriber, our most likely funnel to become a member, to becoming a paying member, and this is a national number, not something we've actually tested extremely, but we've anecdotally verified it, takes about 30 times you have to ask the person. That they're already reading you regularly, but you need to tell them 30 times, hey, you can pay for this and it'll be a better experience. Mm-hmm. And so that's going from step 2 to 3 in the funnel. And then step 4 in the funnel is retaining them. And those are our events, those are improving the website. We push people through that funnel and then try and collect them in the end so that our funnel eventually becomes a nice rectangle where paying members are as big as the free readers. A good long-term goal. Now comes to the part where I ask you what your second question was.
Second question, or the main thing I was interested in, is what are you finding in terms of interest among your readers for what they want to read, what they're clicking on, and so forth, and then how you're balancing that with what you want them to be reading?
Sure. So we did the most valuable feedback we ever got is we did a member survey. It was pre-pandemic, so let's say it was December or January of 2020. We got a lot of feedback. Some of it was very valuable. Some was a real notice that we asked the wrong questions or asked the question the wrong way. The one thing we find by asking readers explicitly, what do you like to read? Is those people are already reading us, so they're going to tell us the things we already believe we are good at. They're going to tell us we like real estate. We like Bruce Murphy's coverage of political issues. We like City Hall coverage. So asking them explicitly, it's the Henry Ford problem. If I asked everyone what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse, not a car. So then we look at what are behavior. Well, we know that there's some tough to monitor, or not, there's some easy to monitor things. Today I wrote a story about something that's happening in Milwaukee's port right on the edge of Bayview. Well, Bayview is an incredibly online community, and I mean that there's a very active Facebook group. We already have an established readership base there. I could have told you, I could have written about a pothole in Bayview and the story would have went nuts, but this port story, very popular. So that's not really the greatest value, because if I just followed that, I'd only be writing stories about downtown Bayview and the east side. So then we look at some other anecdotal things. I wrote about a bar closing a couple weeks ago, and the story just blew up. I think there were a couple of reasons for that. One, we were the only outlet writing about it. Two, it took a tremendous amount of time and actually was fairly detailed. It had a good opening, so I think people were welcome, more encouraged to share it on Facebook. So we can see different behavior there, but the most important thing, and the thing we're not doing well, we're collecting the data, but we're not analyzing it, is what are our members actually reading? And at various points, we've gone and just spot checked it. We have this column, entertainment at a distance. And the idea is these are safe ideas. They're non-indoor events you can do. We've been publishing it, and it never goes anywhere on social media. Seems like no one cares. We're like, well, should we cut it? I'm like, well, let's check what our members are reading. Well, it turns out it was one of the most popular columns that our members were reading. And so that, I think, is really the important data. These people have said they're paying, and then what are they actually reading? Not what they tell us they're reading, but what are they actually reading? And that's something we need to get better at, but I think that's really the frontier for us and how we'll grow what we need to cover. And you had a follow-up to that.
I did.
The vegetables.
That's-
How do you get them to eat the vegetables?
Oh yeah, in terms of, we all need more coverage of our city government and accountability, journalism, and so forth. But that's not always what people want to read.
Yeah, and I think what we're finding is our members are the vegetable eaters. They're kind of showing us what that is.
Good.
They're not always reading. I mean, they're reading, but not overwhelmingly the stories that are popular on social media. They're reading, the entertainment at a distance article that's highlighting what the arts groups are attempting to do in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Now, Jeremy, do you partner with other similar, like I'm thinking neighborhood news? I think you run some of the neighborhood news stories on, am I muted?
No,
No,
you're
I can hear
good.
you.
I'm good. Are there other people, are there other organizations that you partner with?
Yeah, so we partner. So we're a for-profit company. I like to say we're nonprofit, not by choice. But the Neighborhood News Service is a foundation-funded organization that covers certain neighborhoods within the city. We partner with them, as does On Milwaukee, and the Journal Sentinel did at one point. I don't know if they still do, to republish some of their stories. We republish more of them, and then in exchange, we share back with them the traffic they get from Google Analytics, and they put that in their reports to their funders on who they're reaching. We also partner with Wisconsin Public Radio, and in that partnership, we republish what they're doing. They really augment our coverage because they cover a lot of state issues and they cover them quickly. One of the things we like to pride ourselves on is depth, but that takes a lot of time. So when I think there's a Supreme Court ruling expected on Friday, it's very likely that Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling, when you read about it first in Urban Milwaukee, you'll read a Wisconsin Public Radio story. When you click on the story, it's branded from Wisconsin Public Radio. And at the very bottom, you can listen to their audio clip so they can tell what kind of traffic they're getting from us. And then I would expect on Tuesday or Monday when Bruce Murphy writes a column, he'll probably cover the issue in more depth.
There's another question in the chat from Alex.
Sure. So Alex asks, what are some good ways to think about / rationalize putting a dollar figure on your subscriptions? Any thought of bundling subscriptions with some other non-journal outlets? So I'm not quite, if Alex, you want to maybe provide a little bit more clarity on what rationalizing putting a dollar figure on your subscriptions. I can tell you now.
I'll just
go ahead.
I'll just blabber. I'm currently paying for a New York Times subscription. I'm paying for a Washington Post subscription. I'm paying for a San Francisco Chronicle subscription online. So, and they all have varying prices, but it's hard for me to translate $99 a year into what. So I guess am I getting, 1/5 of the news of a New York Times? Am I getting you know, I guess it's hard for me to understand the value proposition just staring at a dollar amount.
Yes. So one thing we always like to say is you can make money pretty easily having your Urban Milwaukee subscription. And we have a number of members that do. You can claim 2 Summerfest tickets. I think those go for $15 a piece. We're going to give away tickets to the Pabst Mansion sometime in the next couple of weeks. In a normal year, you could easily claim all the tickets to totally justify your subscription, even if you never read a single article. So we think that's one of the unique things we do, and that's why we call it membership, not subscription. But I get the subscription fatigue thing. If you start counting, I mean, you ticked off Washington Post, New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle. One of the things we like to think that we provide value with is you're probably going to read a similar article in the Washington Post, New York Times, and San Francisco Chronicle on some big national issue. We think we're going to publish a lot of articles that we're the only place you're going to read about it, or the only place you're going to read about it in that amount of detail. And so that we think is where we're pushing our value to. We're sending a bit of mixed messages, but we're saying, hey, we have these great free offers. You don't even have to read our publications. You'll be supporting it. Claim all the free stuff you possibly can. We also have these members events. You're going to a brewery, you're getting a free beer every time you come. It's a social event. You can bring a guest. And then we think we have high quality journalism in targeted areas. So then your question becomes about bundling with other non-journal outlets. So frustration with Gannett is I can't read the Green Bay Post Gazette, but I pay for the Journal Sentinel. That is a gripe for another conversation. Mm-hmm. But what could we partner with Biz Times? Could we partner with the Business Journal, with anyone out? Milwaukee Record has a little donation service. I think that opportunity is out there long term. It's not something we've totally exhausted yet. And a lot of that is because we're focused on trying to improve our website and the experience. I mean, part of the vision might be long term that could we sell a turnkey solution to another community where someone else can set up an independent publication running on our software. That's maybe an opportunity, but we got to really improve our software. So that's where a lot of our behind the scenes focus.
Another thought I had is maybe you offer a 1-year discounted subscription to Rotary members to just try it out.
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to do that. We're actually in just next week, it'll be $4.14 a month in honor of Milwaukee Day for the next year. But I'm happy to share a link afterwards that could be with a code that you can try it out as well. Yes.
Hey, Jeremy, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Speaking of really good journalism, thank you for your coverage of Foxconn. It's been unique. It's been in depth and steady. So
thank you, Joanne.
I want to maybe make a comment on something Jeremy said about membership. I originally became a member of Urban Milwaukee because I was worried about local news. And I sort of ignored the idea of getting things for free, but actually they do give you things for free. And it's been a surprise. And Jeremy, give yourself some credit. Even in the COVID year, it seems to me I've gone to a number of virtual arts events because of you guys that I might not have sampled otherwise that you gave out to members, which was a nice bonus.
Yeah, I think I'm curious if those virtual events stay, because the beautiful thing about virtual events is there isn't fixed capacity. One of our problems with getting members in the door for free to certain events is, well, you're cutting dollars out of the budget of a lot of arts groups because they have a limited number of seats. Virtual event, the theater expands infinitely. One thing we do to know on if you are involved in the group and you're like, hey, I want to maybe partner with Urban Milwaukee, but what's in it for me? Is we do a dollar for dollar trade with any group that if you give us a $10 ticket, we're going to give you at least $10 in advertising credit on our website.
I think this has been terrific. I'm going to shut off the live stream, but I don't know if anybody else has any more questions. I would expect that Jeremy will stay around for them. But Jeremy, if you want to send me the link, I'll figure out how to share that with people. And thank you for the great work that you're doing. We really do need the kind of coverage that you provide.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Meeting you.
I'm here all day.
Okay.
Yes,
Thanks a lot, Jeremy.
thank you, Jeremy. I'm also a member